Palantir stock has just rallied to close above $10. I want to talk about the rally we had today, and I also want to talk about when Palantir gapped down from earnings in Q1 that we had right here. What has happened since? Let's go. So we saw when Palantir gapped down right here on May 9th, we had this large gap forming, which essentially means there's this hole in the price that many traders like to look at and see if that gap can get filled, be it on the upside or the downside. That is a point of technical analysis. We of course saw Palantir drop down, hit lows of $6.44 per share, had a bit of a rally back, actually filled that gap as I was talking about here, dropped off a little bit, of course, following macro basically ever since hitting that low in the share price. And we've seen a big rally in the last couple weeks. So where has Palantir ended up? Well, Palantir has rallied nearly 60% from its lows to now where it stands today at about $10.19. So a huge rally we've seen in Palantir stock. Of course, the market has had a lot to do with that, especially today. But I also want to show you what's happened because I think the best index, if you want to compare Palantir to one, is not actually an index or to get a baseline of performance off of. Rather, it's ARKK. Of course, Palantir is no longer in ARKK, but I still think that basket of stocks that ARK actually selects and trades in and out of, many days you will see Palantir actually trading very close to that same performance. So I think it's a good place to see how has Palantir been doing relative to its growth counterparts. And so looking since May 9th, Palantir has outperformed ARKK by 27%. So keep in mind, these are growth stocks that Palantir is getting compared against in this trade right here. And for Palantir to outperform by 27% really says a lot about how strong the stock has been more recently, especially against some of the names that ARKK chooses. So that is definitely a good sign here. Now, why has Palantir been outperforming more recently on the stock side? Well, if you looked at the relative strength index back on when Palantir reported earnings, Palantir was very oversold at that point on a technical level. Now, that doesn't always work for trading a stock, but it gives you a good idea. And since then, we've seen a lot of buying power come back into Palantir. I think it is awesome to see that when Palantir actually retraced, it did not retrace lower as the general market did and many growth stocks did not. So I just wanted to share that, what I'm thinking from a technical standpoint. I don't trade Palantir stocks, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I also wanted to talk about, well, we have some news more recently about some more analyst coverage coming into Palantir stock. I talked about the Bank of America note and their initiation of a price target of $13, which for some reason isn't listed here in Bloomberg in the terminal. So they set a $13 price target, which is give or take 50% gain from when they sent out the note this morning. The analyst sees the company as a beneficiary of rapid growing demand for artificial intelligence platforms in both commercial and government end markets. Palantir's dominant position in the AI-powered software market should support more than 30% annual revenue growth and improving margins. Some more notes here. Palantir, with a dominant position in the AI-powered software market, differentiated end-to-end, this is what Palantir talks about, and highly secure solutions and first-mover advantages. So I definitely agree with that. And while the stock has traded lower and in line with software peers this year, investors are not taking into account Palantir's significant U.S. national security exposure. While geopolitical tensions pose a risk to worldwide software penetration, they're an opportunity for Palantir's national security solutions in the U.S. and allied countries, as militaries and intel services will need enhanced data and logistics capabilities as soon as possible. The analysts also noted that the defense budget of the U.S. and its allies are expected to continue growing, but there will be an increased focus on modernization and using new technologies, noting that data is now a strategic asset and various countries' national security agencies need to make sure the data is defended from near-peer threats like Russia or China. So a very positive note coming from Bank of America. Large upside on that $13 price target currently as we are in a bear market. And I'd say just very much confidence talking about Palantir's management team, the focus of the company, and what it has going forward, growth commercially, growth on the government side, of course. We've seen the consensus come down because it almost seems that analyst price targets are a moving average more than they are of a forward-looking metric to actually go off of. Nevertheless, even with downward revisions in price targets, we see the average price target coming in at $11.29. So as for where I think Palantir stock can go from here, I think We can trade within a range of lower than $10, above $10. I really think Palantir could push up even further in the near term. It has come a long ways down, but I think there are some structural issues that the macro economy is facing, as you are all well aware. So I don't think this multiple compression is completely unwarranted in the certain scenario that we have, but it brings us back to the timeless question with Palantir stock, which is, when is the stock going to reflect the actual business, right? Because the business itself has hardly, in my opinion, has not, in my opinion, devalued since earlier this year, since last year at all. I think the business has actually been getting stronger since that point. But yet again, I think there are some reasons for the stock to be down, and these are reasons that will work themselves out going forward many quarters out. We will look to have Palantir's earnings results in August, and this once again could be a turning point for the stock. We see Palantir trade most heavily off of earnings report news more than anything else, more than any other kind of news, as most stocks do. But for their outlook for Q2, they mentioned a base case of $470 million in revenue, which wasn't actually a big increase quarter over quarter, a lower increase year over year. So I think Palantir's really setting themselves up for a beat in the second quarter, because we had fairly in line to a miss in Q1. And I think they're trying to get back to the mindset of having beats to large beats for each quarter as best they can, to under promise and over deliver as they like to. So with all of the tailwinds they have going forward, we'll be able to outperform all of the metrics that they've laid out. And I would not be surprised to see Palantir beat on the top line at least, and then have to deal with the bottom line impacts of these SPAC investments falling significantly. And just if you wanted an update on some of the SPACs, Palantir bought most, if not all of these, at around $10. We've seen they've gotten decimated overall, but I'm hoping the analysts will finally, after 2 quarters of having gone through this, finally factor it into their estimates, so that this does not come as a surprise once again to all of the investors and the algorithms trading off of the earnings report, so the stock doesn't get sent lower for no reason. So just wanted to provide this update on Palantir stock. I don't often talk about the stock specifically, but I thought it's been a great couple weeks for Palantir ever since that earnings report, ever since Jim Cramer said he was bearish on the company. We have him to thank for this recent rally, but I want to caution you into thinking this is going to continue. It very well may, and I'm very much hoping that it does. However, I think that the stock market is going to have to overcome some significant challenges going forward, and it remains to be seen how ugly it will get. So leave a like if this was helpful. Have a great weekend, everyone. Until next time.
Oh, no, that's just, it's I don't want to call it a disaster, but revenue growth 16% from government, that's the slowest. Last year they did they have adjusted free cash flow of only $30 million. They're doing so poorly.